Commercial Construction Coffee Talk fans, thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction and Renovation magazine. If you haven't seen it, that's what it looks like. But now we're digital. Here's some of my covers. Well, there's Mr. Chris from Mammoth Holdings down in Louisiana and JLL, and we got Taunton, all sorts of people. Anyway, glad you could find us on the web. Hope everybody had a great week. The weekend's upon us. Got Memorial Day coming down the road here next week. And boy, you know, today I'm out of Atlanta, 93 degrees here today, but no humidity, just beautiful. No more pollen. So I'm getting all that green stuff off me. And, you know, just unbelievable. But you know what? The heat's coming, the humidity. It's like God just flicks a switch and boom, it's just hot and sticky from like the middle of June all the way to the end of August. Then we get into the fall and it's beautiful again. So, but we'll take the 93 without the humidity, and looks like I'll be doing some watering and a little yard work this weekend. But of course, got my lacrosse shirt on. You know what? Normally I'd have DU on, but they got knocked out of the tournament, lost in the Big East, so they're not in the big dance. And got the quarterfinals this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and 8 teams remain. So there's 2 games tomorrow and 2 games on Sunday. And the big game, University of Virginia against undefeated Maryland, the Turtles out of Maryland, or the Maryland, you know, the Terps as they call them. Anyway, that's the big game of the weekend. Myself, I'm pulling for the University of Delaware Fighting Blue Hens. They knocked off the Georgia Hoyas Sunday night and unseeded and going into the quarterfinal round. So good to them. And, you know, I'm going to pull for the underdog. So go Blue Hens. Let's go. I want to see you on Memorial Day weekend, you know, in, you know, the Final Four, as they say. So with that said, today got a really interesting guest. You know, listen, you know, everybody's gone through the roller coaster over the last 24 months, and stress, mental capacity, all these things that can happen to individuals on the site. And, you know, people get hurt and they think about doing, you know, crazy stuff in general. So today we have Dr. Dan Carlin. He's the CEO and founder of JobsiteCare out of the great state of New Hampshire. Dan, Dr. Dan, say hello to our guests out there at Commercial Construction Coffee Talk.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you, David.
Hey, we appreciate you. And you know, safety is such a big issue. You know, whether it's you know, keeping your hands washed and, you know, the whole stuff, you know, through the last 24 months with job safety and all the protocols. But people don't really think about, you know, all of the stress and, you know, the mental anguish that people have gone through. Not even the last 24 months, but just in general. Yeah, and, you know, and construction, let's face it, it's not an easy thing. And a lot of stuff can happen, and you know, we don't want anybody to get hurt. So as we finish out, you know, Q2 going into Q3 in the summer, I thought having, you know, Dr. Dan is what I'm going to call you, you know, having you on here, you know, is discuss, you know, about your firm and how you go about, you know, advising people about, you know, keeping their people safe and, you know, that mental capacity and so forth. But first, you have to tell us your story. So you have to kind of tell us where you grew up, how many kids you have, dogs, pets, if you're an athlete, and, you know, and how you ended up at JobsiteCare. So with that said, tell us your story.
All right. Well, I'm not a lacrosse player, David, so we're just sorry, strike one. Yeah. But no, background, I went to Carnegie Mellon. I have a degree in chemistry, philosophy, then Tufts Medical School, and then I got a U.S. Navy scholarship. So I spent a couple of years in uniform, some actually pretty awesome years.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, it was my privilege. I was in President Reagan's Navy. I spent 2 years on a guided missile nuclear cruiser, USS Mississippi. It was actually a formative experience for what I do now. Being a nuclear powered ship, you never have to refuel, so you don't hang around with other ships. And you never go into port for diesel, so to speak. So we patrolled alone for a lot, and it was relevant. When I left the service in June of '88, I spent a little less than a year over in Northwest Pakistan on the Afghanistan frontier during the Russian war in Afghanistan. Again, another formative experience. And then I settled down. I did a residency in emergency medicine, got married. I subsequently had 4 daughters. The oldest is 30 and the youngest is 20. Aged in the process.
Following your footsteps to be in the medical field, or?
No, I've got an HR director, I've got a fashion critic, I've got a website designer, and then my last kid's not exactly sure, but she's in the world of fine arts and product design. But they're good kids. They're doing
Oh, good
well.
for you. Hey,
Um,
I give anybody credit that's got more than one kid. And listen, you were the only male in the house. Your wife and four daughters. I give you credit. Come on now, you know where I'm coming from.
no, yeah, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how the 51% of the population interprets the world, and it makes you wiser, smarter, a little bit kinder, a bit more
Sure.
perceptive. But um, professionally, I was one of the first guys in telemedicine, and I did this as an emergency physician to ships. If you go back to 1997, I was using the internet to take care of ships at sea, building on my Navy background, and I've always loved technology. In '98, I was briefly famous. I wrote an email to a solo sailor to get him to operate on himself to save his arm in a solo sailboat race called the Around Alone. He did it. That was the launch of my company, World Clinic, my first company, World Clinic. And that was a global telemedicine practice. Took care of ships. Then I started taking care of islands. And then I started taking care of general contractors who were building resorts and marinas on remote islands. And that's really how I got into construction. Had a big project in the Bahamas, 2006 through 2009. The same general contractor called me in early 2019 and said, can you bring telemedical care to the United States? I said, sure. What's your problem set? What are we trying to solve for? And he goes, well, it's interesting. They do a lot of solar. And they said, we've got a lot of very remote sites, long transport times. So we want to upgrade our access to expertise in a crisis and an emergency. I said, sure, it's my bread and butter. They said, but we also want you to look at workers' comp and how we're managing injured workers, because we really feel it's pretty dysfunctional. They were brutally honest. I'm using nice language, but they're basically saying this is upside down and we want you to fix it.
Mhm.
So that began the journey. First, it was a project. Then it became, we actually started taking care of people. That was 2.5 years ago. We had one project, 300 workers. Now we have 36 projects, about 6,000 workers.
Oh, wow.
We're in 11 different states doing this: solar, vertical construction, stadiums, most of the construction that you're familiar with. We'd like to do a bit more civil construction, but we're growing and doing well. I have to tell you, I've always looked at the construction workforce, because believe it or not, my first construction workforce was in West Africa in 1998. When I was first starting, that was one of my first paying projects. So this has been a sweet, soft spot in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've gotten into it now in the United States, I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the culture. And I know the culture very well. I know it better now than maybe a couple of years ago. But I love how things are done. I love how people carry themselves. I like the directness of communication. It makes it easy to do your job well. And so here we are. Now we're doing this sort of end-to-end medical care for injured workers. Telemedicine is sort of an enabling component. It's not the focus. When you use telemedicine, to me, it means I get to see you at your work site within minutes of you getting injured.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to FaceTime. I'm talking to your site supervisor or the medic in the trailer, but things are happening really fast. I'm getting the story. I'm doing a good exam. But the most important thing is I now own the case. I'm the doctor of record. And for the record, you asked me my background, David. My dad was literally the country doctor. He was the only doctor for Dalton, Massachusetts for 10 years, 1955, 65. So that's where my DNA is. So I own this case, and I've seen them telemedically, and I've seen the wound. I've stabilized the situation. But now I'm the guy who's calling the hand surgeon to get him involved today on my open thumb fracture. I'm the guy who's calling the MRI center that's going to do an MRI today on the guy who just fell, hurt his back, and now he's got a numb leg.
Mm-hmm.
Again, my brain is emergency medicine. I want an answer now. not 2 days from now,
Oh,
not
yeah.
even tomorrow. It's a little compulsive, to be honest with you, but the workers love it because by the end of their experience of that first day of the injury, what they're feeling is care. And I have a bunch of fantastic people working with me, and our ethos is they got to feel the love, man.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah.
if you're one of my patients, I have a team of fantastic men and women, but you feel someone's calling you the night you're injured saying, how you doing? Where are you at with pain? Did you elevate your hand? Let me see your splint. Oh, hell, that thing's on too tight. Let's loosen that up. But they absolutely feel someone's paying attention. And then the very next day, whatever that definitive care event is, the referral to the specialist, whatever, it's happening. In some cases, I'm getting them a ride. I'm calling the Uber. I'm setting it up. But we're making the journey simple, ultra fast. And the results have been really amazing.
Yeah,
Economically and outcomes. And I mean, can I go there? Was that cool?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I have two things, as far as just was it two nights ago, I was going to check my mail, pick up some Chinese food. Anyway, there was an accident down the street, motorcycle, young kid. Anyway, I was wondering what was going on. I figured there was an accident because I was behind all these cars. Anyway, I stopped, the light turned red, and I was right there. Anyway, I saw two cars, must have T-boned this motorcycle guy. He's laying on the ground. And the fire engine station is right down the street. So these people are on the ground. And when you said about, telemedicine, you're right there, you can stabilize the patient. I mean, the guy wasn't moving, hopefully he lived. And I know a couple of guys on the police force. And so I was going to call my buddy and say, hey, Chris, man, did that guy live, or, what happened to him? Because he wasn't moving when I saw him. But I figured when the paramedics got there, they're going to assess the situation. But I wondered if they're doing that, because my own doctor, he does 4 days a month in the ER, and from his family practice. And he's been my doctor for 20 years, but he tells me, it's just, you never know what's going to come in. So when you get that call, you don't know what there's something up, whether it could be, well, I just sliced my hand with a box knife, or I just fell off, I fell into a pipe hole, whatever it might be. When it's like you're on the Batman hotline. Hey, what's going on, right?
It's not an exaggeration. I'll tell you, in this 2.5-year experience, at the other end of the FaceTime, I ran a cardiac resuscitation in a parking lot on a construction site with a 19-year-old kid doing CPR. And we got the automatic external defibrillator on this guy, and we juiced him right in the parking lot. And the son of a gun came back to life. He was starting to move when the paramedics got there. They flew him up to a major capital city, and he was, fully. They did the whole brain rescue and a cardiac arrest. It's a whole new protocol in emergency medicine. The guy came back to work 4 weeks later to say thanks. Just nice. Literally came back to the work. Yeah, he should have told us that he had 4 stents put in his heart 3 months before starting his job. However, I think at that point he said, yeah, it's probably time to retire. So there is that intense end. Like, we've had a couple of guys come in with active chest pain. One guy got stented that night. Another guy stented the following Monday. I'm sad to say we had an overdose in a porta potty, intravenous, but that guy did not die. We have Narcan. We put a locker on all of our job sites, and I'm telling the guy, run to the locker, grab the Narcan, and push it up his nose fast as hard as you can. And the guy woke up from his slumped in the porta potty, and we transported him to the hospital. So there's definitely emergency medicine component. On any given day, though, the bread and butter is, I just crushed my finger, I've sliced my hand, I've torn my rotator, I've hurt my back. You'll laugh at this. We take care of a bunch of ski resorts, and they have a lot of seasonal physical labor. We get more blown out knees from November to April than we'll have in the entire rest of the year combined, right?
I have both my ACLs replaced. I blew one playing hockey in '99, the year my son was born, and my wife was psyched because she knew I couldn't play hockey and do anything, so I was there for my son. And then 2 weeks before my black belt test in Taekwondo, I was going down to Miami to look for some hotels for one of my events. And they're like, "Hey, Mr. Corsi, you want to do one more jump sidekick?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Put the bags up, go over, break the board, came down, blew the other knee out. And but I had already done the rehab, so I kind of knew what the gig was. But yeah, had both my ACLs. And I look at ACL surgery now. Like, I know some of my friends, like in the 80s, when I was skiing out in Denver, they blew their knees and they have the big scars down the leg. Now it's like carpentry. It's like drywall work. They come in, they cut the ligament out, they put a new rubber band in, 2 new screws, boom, and then you stretch for 8 or 9 months, you know? And
Right. And they do it through a hole that's about this big.
yeah, exactly.
You know?
I have
Yeah.
like, I've got a couple of holes in this leg and I got a couple of holes in this one. I did my patella in one leg and I did cartilage in the other. You know, I didn't do the cadaver thing, you know, because I was like, no, just take it from me. I don't want to deal with it. But
You don't, yeah.
But you know, I'll tell you the one thing I did. My first ACL I did when I was 39, and then my second one I did it when I was about 51. And the difference, my first one, I had surgery in April, and then in December I was on Vail skiing with a brace. And I worked my tail off on rehab because I wanted to get back on the ice. I was playing in the AAA league here, and but when I blew my knee out doing Taekwondo with my son, anyway, it took me a good 1.5 to 2 years. Your body just doesn't heal as quick. And I remember laying on the bed trying to get my leg straight, and I told my wife, I'm like, I've hit a wall. I cannot get my leg 100% straight. And she's like, "You're not 20 anymore. You're 51 or 52, whatever it was."
Yeah.
And so it, you know, anyway, I was kind of like, look, Gordie Howe played till he was 63. So as long as I can run up and down the field or on the, you know, I'm going to keep playing, you know. So it's that's my kind of mentality. I call myself Captain Lego. I've broken my ACLs, nose, fingers, ribs. I mean, I've been put together so many times. I just know that, you know, painkillers don't work, and if you do take them, you better take some stool softener. So you know, it's
Truth to that.
oh yeah, you know, and you know, just but you know, before the the roller coaster started, you know, 24 months ago in March of 2020, were a lot of people doing the telemedicine on, because, you know, before, you know, people that would have, you know, first aid kits on sites and this and that, but really safety wasn't, you know, it was an issue, but it was kind of a thing you really didn't, you know, talk about. Now, like with Zoom, it's not going away. People learn how to use it with meetings. You're doing it for medical, but before, I mean, it wasn't prevalent. Am I correct? I mean,
No, you're absolutely right. It was funny. Construction was one of the early adopters as an industry. And again, I just knew this because of a lot of the overseas work we were doing, but we had a very interesting journey. We got things going with this big general contractor, had some success, and then the roller coaster started, and we had to build an entire new platform to monitor their workforce. Everybody had to report symptoms. I hired a whole bunch of medical people to track, and this is a 6,000 man workforce, right?
oh wow.
So if you were reporting headache, fever, and a cough, we would issue them a little QR code to go to work. If you didn't get a QR code from us that day, you couldn't go to work. So we'd put them in, we'd sit them in the penalty box for a couple of days, figure out, is this the virus or not?
Right.
Now, 70% of the time we learned they were better in 2 days, and it was not the virus. They were hungover, had allergies, or just had a garden variety cold, and they bounced right back. So it was very efficient, and our client didn't close any of his job sites, which was good because we need them to keep working so we can, you know, prove the value of the model. So it had a really good, one hand fed the other. Now, what's really cool now is they're back to work. In fact, everybody's back to work. I just came from a big conference on mental health and construction, and one of the number one stressors is now that we're all back to work, everybody's rushing like hell and we're under an amazing amount of stress. And it's like, yeah, I know. I mean, we're seeing it in our practice. We saw an inverse correlation. When we had a lot of virus, we didn't have a lot of injuries. And now that we don't have a lot of virus, we have a very good daily churn of injuries. But it gave us some time to perfect the model. And by that, I mean, we've learned I'll be really blunt. I'm just going to tell you two elements of the secret sauce, because we've been really successful. Element one is The person has to feel you care, that you love them, that you're taking your job seriously, and you have exactly 48 hours to demonstrate this. And if you don't, they're going to see you as an adversary. They're going to see you as a jerk, as an inauthentic baloney artist. You're not taking my injury seriously. And if you think the injured worker's bad or angry, you should meet their mother, their wife, their brother, their
Sure.
father, their spouse. They'll tear into you. Now, we don't have that experience, honestly, because again, this whole concept of treat the injured worker like a family member, they got to feel the love. So that's sort of a key element of this. The other part that we discovered was you got to compress time by imaging early. You know, in the old days, like a blown out cruciate, these people would get 2 weeks of physical therapy on an injury that is not going to respond to physical therapy. Why didn't you answer the question first by imaging them day one? So, you know, we've had some issues around, we'll occasionally deal with practitioners or claims adjusters, and they'll say things like, well, no, our protocol says you got to get 2 weeks of physical therapy. And I'll say, I don't care what your protocol is. This is a ruptured cruciate ligament. We're going to MRI him today. And we did have a little bit of friction. So we would go either right to the general contractor, the employer, you know, whoever was at risk for losing the employee, and say, please give us permission to image these folks same day or next day. And it was for two reasons. One, get to the diagnosis fast. But again, back to principle one, they got to feel the love. And you cannot send them home on a Friday so they can worry about it all weekend. Did I just break a bone in my wrist? Did I just rupture a collateral ligament in my knee? My hip still hurts. Is it broken? You got to answer that question right away. So that was something really different that I would like to take credit for, along with the rest of my team, of just changing that dynamic from let's wait and see. How about we just see today? And that has been a game changer in terms of outcomes. Patients like you, they get better faster because they start to trust you. They're more comfortable coming back to work because we bring them right back to work and we see them at work. We do all our rechecks at work, you know, and then of course their spouses like you, so they're not putting up with friction at home. And the employers like you because, you know, when you practice medicine this way, you know what you're doing. And by the way, you bothered to read all the regulations around OSHA. You generate a lot fewer OSHA recordable events just by practicing good medicine. And get this person better, get them back to a faster place. Don't overtreat them because that just feeds a whole other level of neurosis, but treat them accurately, treat the problem. And so, I mean, I'm happy to report it's going gangbusters.
You know, I look at like my physician. I've been with him for 20, 25 years. You know, wouldn't go anyplace else. He's my age, so I can talk to him. And I look at him just like my attorney. I went through when I started my company back in 2001 when I left Nielsen. I had to get my LLC agreement, and I went to the first attorney. He didn't have the same vision as I did. And then I hired another attorney. I'm like, these guys just don't get where I'm coming from. Finally, I met this young guy who's from Massachusetts. He's been practicing business law. He went to prep school too. So, you know, but we got along. He saw my vision. Now, he's been with me ever since. Now, I don't like calling him because whenever I call him, I know the meter's running, you know, but I look at him just like I do my doctor because my doctor's, you know, I have to drive across the river. He's probably a good half hour for me, you know, give or take, depending what traffic is, but I wouldn't go to anybody else. I mean, he knows everything about me, you know, and we were talking about, you know, maybe moving. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm not going to have Dr. Orris on my side. And he does the telemedicine too here because he said, look, he has his family, couple offices. He does some vein stuff as well, but he's also in the ER. And when this whole thing came about, he said, look, if you get sick, don't come to the office. Just call me. We can do a Zoom call, you know, and we'll figure out. If you get really sick, then we'll figure it out. But other than that, you know, just call me. And one of the really cool things, I don't know, you know, talking about doctors and practices, you know, he's done a concierge service. A lot of the doctors, and even my dentist does the same thing. they don't make their money on Medicaid or Medicare. You know, they pay pennies on the dollar. It's all this paperwork. So they went to a cash service where every month I pay a lump sum, and I can go in and I can call and say, like, here, you got here are my thumbs. Here, I don't know, but anyway, I broke this thumb back in August playing lacrosse. I got slapped, but you can still see it. Still, it didn't heal. Anyway, tournament was the next week. I'm like, whatever. I ended up playing a goal, got pelted. So he's like, oh man, why don't you come in? I'm like, well, I want to play in last. You know me. Big deal. It's a thumb. So he goes, well, do you want to put a splint on or whatever? So right now, it's still kind of, it's kind of crooked and
you
whatever.
can see it's not right.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? I can still move it, and it is what it is. I'm a hockey player. You get stitched up, you go back on the ice. This isn't soccer. So, but he got rid of it, and he put me on a monthly plan, and he's transparent about everything, and I can call up, and everything's included. And then, except for any major stuff, he tells you what the price is. And my dentist did the same thing, and he just said, look, we love cash. Cash is king, and I don't have to do all the paperwork. And a lot of the doctors around here, north of Atlanta, have gone into this concierge service, and I think it's the best thing ever. Because one of the things that happened when I blew out my second knee, I'm a melanoma survivor. In 2006, I had a little mole, and I went and got a biopsy, and my dermatologist said, hey, you know what? If you leave it on there, it'll be cancer. Let's take it off. So the first doctor, he cut it, and then he took a piece of my eyelid and basically, kind of laid it on there. And a couple years later, I'm looking in the mirror, and the mole came back, and I'm like, holy smokes. So I went back to the dermatologist. It was 4th of July weekend, and he said, let me biopsy it. Probably nothing. Came back. It's melanoma. Got to get that off immediately. So I had to go to the Mohs surgeon, and he took about the size of an egg out of my face. And then he called me back. He didn't get it all because he looked underneath the slides that night, and he called me. He said, hey, you got to come in and get that shot with the needle this long at 5 o'clock in the morning, man. That was no fun. And then I had to get stitched up. The plastic surgeon, he kind of made me look like a basset hound. He goes, you have to wait 9 months and let your skin stretch. So I go, fine. 9 months later, I go, look what you did to my face. He just gave me right here, go see Dr. So-and-so. So this other guy, he put 2 screws in and kind of measured me out. And so, like I said, I couldn't put together a bunch of times. But the whole concept of just going through all that stuff. But what happened when I did my knee, I was in between, no one would insure me because I had the melanoma, and my doctor had written a note to Blue Cross and whatever. So I was on those catastrophic plans. Every 6 months, I would insure it.
Yeah.
So what happened was when I blew my knee out, I was right between my catastrophic plan ending and the new one going. So I did it right when I didn't have my coverage. So it was about $25,000 to get my knee done. And, my other knee, I knew it was about $8,000. So I shopped around, and I found 2 doctors. One was actually up in Maine. The other one was in Oklahoma City. They do the whole surgery for $7,000, but I have to fly out there and spend a week. So I went back to the hospital, and I said, look, I found 2 doctors that'll pay $7,000 to do my leg. I don't want to go out and, I was going to do Oklahoma because it was wintertime, and Maine is nice, but if you go there, you want to go there in the summer, except for the black flies that are up there. So anyway, I said, look, I'll give you $7,000. So they went from $25,000 to $15,000. And so finally they took my $7,000. And I knew right there and then that the healthcare, it was broken because it was broken because they weren't transparent about anything. And I told them when I get my American Express card, I go, don't send me any more bills, $7,000. And I knew that my surgeon, I said, how much are you getting charged? Then I had to pay the anesthesiologist. How much are you getting charged? So I kind of knew what everything was. And that's the way that medicine should be. I tell people, I said, look, having the copay and all that stuff is just crazy because, when I grew up, insurance wasn't like that. You just paid for the big stuff. It's like having a car. You got to buy your tires, you got to buy your oil changes. Insurance should just be for the big stuff. You should just pay for your other stuff. Having the copay is crazy. Yeah. So it was amazing that even though I had my knee redone, it opened my eyes. And then when my doctor did this concierge thing, it was unbelievable. But he's been, we've had talks about construction because he knows that's the sector I'm in, and he said, David, man, you'd be amazed at how many people that are patients of mine that have got hurt on the job. Just like you said, whether it's slicing their finger or a back injury, and and if you don't diagnose it in time, it can lead to other stuff. And that's the most important thing is, finding out what's wrong as far up front. Just like in a planning of a construction project, you want to know everything up front in the planning stage, not
Right.
at the construction stage. So I didn't even take all that time up, but just,
But you said two things that are spot on. The first one was about concierge medicine. So our model, I mentioned my first company, World Clinic, was this telemedicine practice for ships and islands, but it was very concierge-ish. A lot of people own super yachts or an island or whatever. So that was our DNA was, the model is take care of this patient on every level. So very concierge-like. The second thing you said, which is really important, is we get paid once a year. And I have no incentive to make cases last longer. I have no incentive to order more tests than are needed, more imaging that's needed, more drugs that are needed. And this is the problem with workers' comp. The vast majority of providers are highly incentivized to make the case last longer, prescribe more than that's needed for imaging, drugs, and on and on and on. And what happens is that balloons the cost of the injury, not just in dollars, but in time. In fact, one of our biggest clients, we took their loss runs, their data, and we showed them that from their own data, we had about 4 years of their data, the biggest driver of cost was the duration of the case. And with their own data, we said, if your cases are not closed by 4.5 months, every single subsequent month will cost more than the previous months. So month 5 costs more than 4, month 6 costs more than 5, and now it's 300,000, 550,000, 910,000, 1.4 million, and right on up. So this was a moment in time where they said, "Oh my gosh, we kind of knew that's right. Thanks for the data." So this informed us around, we got to move quickly here to close these cases, to get these people recovered as quickly as possible. And here's the not so great part. Some of the providers we met, some of these are well-known occupational medicine clinics and particular orthopedic practices in particular cities. They did not like us at all because they were highly motivated to make these cases last as long as possible. They had arrangements and relationships with, I'm not going to go too much farther.
I know exactly what you believe. I
don't want to
totally
slander anybody. I'm just going to tell you that everybody was in on making money the longer this case lasted. And the poor patient they were barely part of the formula. So this was a little bit of our learning as we got going into this space in the United States. Now we don't tolerate it at all. If I meet someone that's not on the up and up, we eliminate them from our referral network. We'll call them at home and say, look, I don't like this orthopedist. We're going to send you over to someone better, faster, quicker, more responsive, that type of thing.
So how does someone get set up? Like if they hired your firm, how would the setup go for a construction site? Would they have like a dedicated laptop there, or how does it all work?
So most of our sites don't even have a medic, though we have a nice little medic group inside JobsiteCare. Most of our sites, we train the site safety officer, put a locker on site that we unlock remotely. And if someone's injured, they come to the safety officer. The safety officer opens an app on their phone. Actually, I think I can show it to you real quick.
Great.
So not sure you can see that little white cross.
I can see it.
Yeah, so you just tap that guy and that's what you get. And then they hit the call doctor button, and it's 35 seconds to speak to a doctor. We convert it to video at about 1 minute. And then at that point, it's just eye to eye, face to face. We're doing an interview. We're gonna, our site safety officer, we're asking him to put on a pair of gloves, help us, examine the crushed thumb, the knee, whatever it might be. And we get it moving in the right direction. So if you have the ER doc on call, which is us, and you have the locker, which is sort of like a little emergency room in a box, you got about 80% of the problem is solved. The next 20% is if you need a referral or higher levels of care. The thing that you didn't know is when you called us, we geo-mapped you. And our CTO basically built a global database of all the pharmacies, 24-hour pharmacies, all the imaging centers, all the emergency rooms, all the urgent cares, all the preferred providers. So I can literally give you driving directions to the next step.
That's
Like,
awesome.
Yeah. So it's, like I said, it's been a huge amount of fun pulling this all together and kind of kicking workers' comp onto the right track, getting it off this place where it's been.
So where do you get your stable of doctors that, are in your network? I mean, how does that work as well? Because that's a huge component of you be able to build your business, correct?
Yep. So we work with the client and say, okay, so you've got some form of provider network, right? And they'll say, yep. And we'll say, who do you like? Who have you had a good experience? And we'll go back over the last year or two of the loss runs and cases, and we'll find out who are the reliable orthopedists, neurologists, internal medicine, allergy, whatever it is. We need hand surgeons. We like really know our hand surgeons well. And then we'll call them up and say, look, I'm in my role, I'm the acting medical director for this general contractor. We need to understand a few things. I'm the medical director. I'm going to be sending you cases. I expect you to address them in a timely fashion. If surgery is indicated, and I will know if surgery is indicated because I'm a career emergency physician, you will take them to the operating room in a timely fashion. Now, the truth is, when they're good docs, they all would go, yeah, of course, perfect. Yeah, I love it. And I say, look, I'm going to do all the follow-up. I'm going to do all the pain management. I'm going to do all the paperwork. And at that point, they love you if they're good. If they're on the up and up, they love us because they just took off all this administrative burden, right?
Oh yeah, paperwork.
If they're not high integrity, they start giving us a hard time, and they start saying, no, I'm in charge all the way. I'm like, okay, well, if you insist, but you're never going to get one of my patients, right? Sure. But that's more, I have to tell you, that's more the exception. The rule, then 95% of the time, the hand surgeon, the ortho, whoever it is, or the neurologist are like, oh, I love you guys. Because I don't want to do the paperwork. I don't want it to do the work status and the restricted duty. Whereas, we bake that stuff into our software. You're on restricted duty in Florida, I got the form. You're on restricted duty in California, I got the form. It's just simple stuff like that that makes it much easier to do.
Well, listen, this is an awesome conversation because my stepdad just passed away a couple of days ago, and we had to put him in a rehab facility and trying to find the right rehab facility, and then the doctor there put him on some. I mean, if you just don't have the right people that don't have the same vision, and it just makes everything so much more cumbersome. So everything you said is, like you said, was spot on with me. I'm like, my alarm bells are just going, wow, this is awesome. So let me, with everything that's gone over the last 24 months, if you wanted to leave one positive thought or phrase with our audience out there on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk, what would it be?
Take care of your people. This roller coaster was a mental roller coaster. Mm-hmm. And it really beat up a lot of people emotionally. It's very, very stressful. We're bringing people back to work, and I see this a lot. Help them to get back to work mentally. It's so easy to overload them with stress because we want to get going right back to where we were. It's like, whoa. Let's get to steady state. Yeah, of course we got to get active. We're going back to work, but keep an eye on your people. Keep an eye on their mood, their stress. If you're noticing they're starting to get a little withdrawn, or they're drinking too much, or their behavior's changed, do not ignore that. It's not insignificant. Honestly, David, if I could leave your audience with one thing, is like, guys, we're going back to work. Pay attention. Pay attention to your colleagues. Pay attention to your coworker. Pay attention to your boss. Everybody's been under a lot of stress, and now we got a little bit more stress coming back to work. Let's care for each other a little bit. Make it easy to listen, right? Open the door. We got a problem in construction. We're very stoic, get the job done, don't ask for help, definitely don't ask for help if you're feeling sad or depressed or drinking too much, when that's the exact moment you should be asking for help. So our industry needs to make it possible, permissible, even endorsable to ask for help, especially with the mental health stuff.
If anybody was out there on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk, wanted to come, contact you, reach out to you to find out, how they can implement this, with their own program. And it wouldn't even have to be just, a contractor. It could be a flooring manufacturer or an architect, whatever it might be.
Sure. Yep.
How could they, reach out to you and connect with you?
Send me an email. That's the easiest way. D Carlin. So it's Dan Carlin, but DCARLIN, dcarlin@JobsiteCare.com. And I answer every email. And, likely I want to start the conversation with you and figure out what we
Sure.
can do together. But, I'm a guy who's leading a team that loves their work. Please take advantage of that. Even if I'm not going to work for you, I can tell you what to do. And I get a kick out of it.
Hey, I guarantee there'll be some people that will reach out to you, and listen, I always tell everybody, look, if you don't know, ask, and then you'll know, where you stand or whatever the answer that you're looking for. But and listen, even if you don't even have this and you wanted to bounce something off that's been bugging you or whatever that you were worried about, talking to your own bosses, give Dr. Dan a call, and he could give you some advice. So so D Carlin at JobsiteCare.com, right?
You got it. Yep.
If anybody wants to reach me, I'm at davidc@ccr-mag.com. I know you hate me to say it, but it's like playing the lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. So if you don't send me something, I can't get you, in the magazine or up on the website. We had another 2.5 million people hit the site last month. So send me some contact. Listen, I found Dr. Dan, his publicist, reach out to me. That's how we got him on the show. I read his release. I'm like, oh my God, I got to have this person on here. And so send me stuff. We look at everything. And just like Dan, I answer everything. Within 20 or 48 hours, I'll come back to you. So send me something and we'll see if we can get you some PR. Free PR is good PR. So Dr. Dan, this has been a pleasure. And, I have so many, my buds, I guarantee when I put this up there, they're gonna be like, hey, that was a really good one. So we appreciate it. And we appreciate your service too. Go Navy. And,
Go Navy, beat Army.
Yeah, go Navy. And, I'm from an Army family. My grandfather was in WW2. He was a combat engineer underneath Patton, and he rebuilt all the bridges in WW2. But our family construction business has been in business since 1888. So we're in our 5th generation. And I can tell you, when we all turned 16 outside of Philly, where I grew up, and you got your driver's license, you had to work in the scrapyard. And, listen, I had to take the shower in OSHA because that was the gig, to get all the lead off me and stuff. But, my Uncle Frank, who was the job super in the scrapyard, he didn't want to hear that you had a tummy ache. He didn't want to hear that you had, there was none of that going on way back when. That's like, when baby oil was good for you, smoking cigarettes, no safety belts, So now today, you know what I'm saying? Today it's a whole different ball game, I tell my son's working for Boeing. I'm like, you don't even know. I shoveled asbestos, so it's, anyway, so much has changed. But it's great to know that, that if you're on a construction site and you're not feeling well, whether smelly or you cut, having a program like this, because you're going to pay for it anyway, you might as well have the technology and all this there. I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. So for all you out there, take advantage of it. So with that said, everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy Memorial Day. We all earned it. Let's finish Q2 off on a positive note. And if you're watching lacrosse this weekend, enjoy the games and go Fighting Blue Hens. Let's get it done. Love to see an unseeded team win it all, but you got to beat the Turtles because that's who's going to be left up there, I'm sure. So, Dr. Dan, say goodbye up in New Hampshire.
Thanks, guys.
And David Corson, I'm going to sign off from Sugar Hill, just below the Beaufort Dam on Lake Lanier. And we will see you all next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. I look forward to meeting you in person someday, okay?
Me too.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Dan.
Guys.
See ya.
Bye-bye.